Now, we know that we have this LIBOR scandal, that is the setting of interest rates, but don't worry, it only affects $550 trillion worth of assets. So, now how might it affect you? For example, if they fix it and it affects the interest rate and the interest rate is low, you might think, well, that's a good thing if I've got a mortgage, etc., but it's a bad thing if you got savings. So if you're looking for getting as much as you can out of your savings, you're retired, etc., and they set the interest rates low, well, sad day for you, that's money out of your pocket. Now, if they set them high, which is less likely, but happens, well, then if you have a mortgage, as an example, or you have other debt, well, your interest rate's higher, and that's money out of your pocket. Now, here's who doesn't have money out of their pocket. The banks that are fixing the LIBOR rate. Now, who are they? Well, we know Barclays. They've already come out and admitted that they did that, and their top 3 executives are gone, which is huge, doesn't normally happen, but they have actually stepped down. Must be a different country. Oh, that's right, it is. It's Great Britain. Here in the U.S., you can break any rules, laws, destroy any economy you like, and you just get further bonuses. That's how the bankers work in this country. And in fact, it turns out, of course, there are 12 banks involved, including U.S. banks like J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, etc. But you say, hey, look, that hasn't been proven yet, and the poor regulators here in the U.S., they didn't know anything about it. I mean, if the Fed had known something about this, something as colossal, setting interest rates for almost all the assets in the world, I mean, $550 trillion. That includes derivatives, so it's a bit perverse in that sense, because that's just totally throws off the scale. But nonetheless, it's a gigantic portion of our economy and our interest rates that are set by LIBOR. So, the Fed obviously would have taken action. Oh, wait, I'm hearing, oh, no, they didn't take action and they knew about it. To which, of course, I say, of course, they didn't do anything. And of course they knew. So here are your awesome quotes. Now, remember who's the head of the New York Fed when they find out about this apparently in 2007 and 2008. You know who it is? Tim Geithner, current Treasury Secretary. If you need someone to cover a banker's ass, there is no better blanket than Tim Geithner. So, at the time, did they know about it? Here's a quote that the spokesperson for the New York Fed just put out. Quote, in the context of our market monitoring following the onset of the financial crisis in late 2007, involving thousands of calls and emails with market participants over a period of many months, we received occasional anecdotal reports from Barclays of problems with LIBOR. In other words, yes, we absolutely knew. But there were thousands of emails, and it was over a course of many months. I mean, this little thing about fixing the global interest rates. Who could get to that? Really? I mean, that's the whole point, right? To make sure that these banks aren't cheating? No, well, of course, if you know how the Fed works, it's the exact opposite. The whole point is to allow the banks to cheat and to gain all the advantages, because who's on the board of the New York Fed? Well, it's all of the top bankers. So they get to set the rules for themselves. And then they get a lackey, a tool like Tim Geithner, who they appoint as the head and go, well, he's not a banker. Look at that. He's very independent. Everybody else on the board nominated by the top banks. And golly gee, it turns out our tool, Tim Geithner, let us cheat. Wow, who could have guessed? Well, how about 2008? Well, the spokesperson for the New York Fed continues. In the spring of 2008, following the failure of Bear Stearns and shortly before the first media report on the subject, we made further inquiries of Barclays as to how LIBOR submissions were being conducted. We subsequently shared our analysis and suggestions for reform of LIBOR with the relevant authorities in the UK. In other words, we totally knew what was going on with LIBOR. Not only did we know there was a problem, we even sent in suggestions for how to fix it. Now, did you do anything? Did you take action? Did you go to the banks and say, hey, you stop fixing the LIBOR rate? I'm the New York Fed, the most powerful institution when it comes to banking in this country and perhaps in the world. Nope, didn't do a damn thing. Why? It's the same old Tim Geithner excuse he uses every time. Mike, it could have hurt the banks. We were in 2008. We were in a perilous state. And if we had taken action then, and it hurt, the banks were already in bad shape, and then if they didn't artificially keep the rates really low so that their balance sheet looked better, they might have gone under. Oh my God, the banks, my precious, lovable banks. I love you so much. I think that not only is Tim Geithner a blanket for the banks, he has a blanket called the banks. And he snuggles up with it every night. Oh, like, oh, the precious, precious, I need you, banks, I need you. Like he does this mantra for himself, like, Wall Street is Main Street, Wall Street is Main Street, Wall Street is Main Street. I'm trying to protect the American people. Nonsense. Wall Street is not Main Street. We don't need these banks. Iceland proved it. They had a disaster in terms of finance because of their top banks. And here's what they did. They arrested the bankers and even went after their government officials who had not taken enough action. And after nationalizing the banks and then putting them back out, right? So they're not going to keep the banks forever. That's not the point. Nobody's interested in that kind of socialism, right? It's the whole point is to fix the system so that it works again. Guess what happened? Iceland recovered. One of the best recoveries in the world right now. So of course there's another way if you actually care to protect the citizens of this country rather than the bankers. But Tim Geithner has, if you're being generous to him, totally confused those two missions. If you're not being generous, he's in on it. Now, to give you a sense of how much Tim Geithner knew, they had a series of 10 meetings about LIBOR. So and it wasn't like, oh, among the thousands of emails, oh, did somebody mention LIBOR fixing? No, they had 10 different meetings. You know what one was called that Tim Geithner presided over between 2:30 and 3 p.m. on April 28th of 2008? Quote, fixing LIBOR. Gee, I wonder if they knew there was a problem with LIBOR. Come on. So, as usual, our Fed complicit in the banks cheating. No one will be punished on our end because the banks actually run our government. They will gain all the advantages and they will suffer none of the consequences. Business as usual. Thank you so much. U.S. Treasury Secretary, former head of the New York Fed, and overall tool of Wall Street, Timothy Geithner.